very much. Kindly sit down, please. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for driving this process since morning. Although they gave a very eloquent introduction about your trajectory, but I think they forget to mention that we were at Freetown College at the same time. When you also spoke that it is unfortunate that you cannot come back in 20 years to FTC, you can always come to Freetown Polytechnic in different capacities. So the CV that was read out here, at one point I was wondering whether you want to put your position, want to postulate for the future principal role of the Freetown Polytechnic. But we take good note of that. Honorable ministers, our professors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I feel very honored today to make a statement at this very important occasion, marking the transition of the Freetown Teachers College and the Government Technical Institute to the Freetown Polytechnic. This fine and forward-looking transition is a vivid testimony of this government commitment to bolster the education sector. As you all know, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that education is a vital component of His Excellency's President Julius Maada Bio Human Capital Development Vision. When we came in as a government in 2018, we took the bold step to unbundle the then Ministry of Education, Science and Technology into Basic Education and Ministry of Technical and Higher Education. We did this voluntarily with all conviction that His Excellency Julius Maada Bio believed that human capital development is the right path to sustainable development. So as a result, we have to pay principal attention to education. So unbundling process decided to allocate the Ministry of Basic Education to drive the vision of His Excellency with regards to free quality education. That is why today we have as a government allocated 22% of the budget, GDP, to education. Today we have about 2.6 million kids across this country, and in some instances providing transportation for them, and in some communities providing food to keep the kids at school. The latter, which is the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education, is entrusted with the core mandate to ensure that we provide quality technical and higher education to Sierra Leoneans. That is to say, support skills training and capacity for the job market, train qualified teachers, develop the capacity to conduct research that is going to feed into our national development prospect. But more importantly, it is one of the major responsibilities that is given to this ministry is to provide the space, the environment, the teaching and learning environment for the product of the free quality education. Make no mistake, if today you have 2.6 million kids in school, higher education is going to be a serious challenge. So as a government, we are positioning the ministry to respond to that challenge. This explains that government is committed to establish a new university, upgrade other institutions into universities. The Eastern Technical University of Sierra Leone was recently launched in Kenya. The Kono University of Science and Technology and the Meti Magai Technical University will be launched very soon. Today we are here not only to celebrate, but to officially endorse the transition of the Freetown Teachers College and the Government Technical Institute into the Freetown Polytechnic. The focus, I believe, is to provide professional teacher education and skills training. I want to state here, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that what we are doing here today is a mere declaration of the progressive metamorphosis of these two institutions. As the Minister of Education, Professor Wuri, just said, that this was done in the University Act in 2001 with the Polytechnic Act and amended in 2014. It is also important to note that the two major polytechnics have now been transformed into technical university. Therefore, there is a gap in middle-level management manpower skills. Today, this transition process of the Freetown Teachers College and the Government Technical Institute is equally designed to fill that gap. In addition, government has established 10 technical vocational institutions in 9 districts across the country. And we are going to establish 6 more. Because as a government, we are firmly convinced that skills training, that the skills and training that will be acquired from this institution, from the new Freetown Polytechnic, will unquestionably feed into the country's socio-economic development. Why this is vital? I want to use this opportunity to explain why the Freetown Polytechnic is vital for us and the new direction government. It is vital because the Freetown Polytechnic, like the Minister of Education and Professor Algali just said, is going to constitute a bridge. What bridge? When we came in as a government, if you look at the human capital development component of our government, you realize that these are sectors, are social sectors. What social science scholars will call the sectors that where you have the opportunity to develop skills and also focus on service delivery. The government is making very strong effort to also focus on the productive sector. The productive sector is going to enable us as a government and as a people to develop those sectors that are critical to job creation and also critical to generating revenue that will help us to support the social sector. That is why I said Freetown Polytechnic is going to constitute a bridge between the social sector and the productive sector. How is that going to happen? When you look at the productive sector, I'm going to just take clearly 4 areas. One is energy. When we came in as a government, energy access was 16%. Today, we are 24%. And across the country, we are building off-grid solar powers in small communities. Also, we are building transmission and evacuation lines. We are building power generation capacity. And in all of this transformation, because where we are today in terms of energy is what they will call in actual fact utility energy. So this government is making effort to transition from utility energy to productive energy. That is, produce the energy that can support socioeconomic development. And in that transition process, you need skills. You need manpower skills. Skills to manage off-grid solutions for solar power, renewable energy, to maintain power stations. Because if we want to move from merely 16% to 50%, which is our target by 2023, you need the skills to be able to keep that energy sector alive and become productive. The other sector is fisheries. Sierra Leone also, this government also wants to transform that sector. Because today what we get as government from that sector is mere license fees. We don't get enough revenue like our counterparts in West Africa, like Togo and Senegal, because we don't have a fish harbor and a processing center. A fish harbor and a processing center will enable us not only to receive license fees, but also to process and repackage fish, marine product, and then transport them to the West and get additional revenue. Currently, we have a grant from the Chinese government with counterpart funding from government to build a fish harbor and a processing center that will require skills, technical skills to manage that processing center, and that is going to be an engine for economic growth. The other sector I just want to touch on is tourism. Tourism in the 80s used to be a vital source of revenue in this country. But after the Civil War, that sector collapsed totally. When we came in, we are trying to revive that sector. Although we have made huge progress in the soft aspect of that transformation, which is to put the legal reforms and the laws and regulations and ensure that Sierra Leone, if you come to Sierra Leone, you don't need a visa, you can get a visa on arrival to encourage people to come. You also have to touch about the professionalization of the hospitality industry, which means today the tourism sector can only boom if equally you focus on the supply side of that sector. That is, professionalize that sector. We already have the School of Tourism. With the Polytechnic here, we expect that the hospitality industry will be served with the kind of skills they need to keep that industry, because that is vital to the tourism. Already here, speakers before me have made mention of agriculture. That is also one important sector. We have invested a lot of resources, and we believe that that is a sector that is linked to the future prospect, economic prospect of this country. As a country, when we came in 2018, we were spending about $520 million to import food, of which $240 million alone is on rice. His Excellency the President gave us a mandate to reduce that dependency on food importation. So we elaborated the Agriculture Transformation Plan 2020-2023, wherein we highlighted the key areas that government wants to invest to open up that sector and improve food production. That is, from food production. Food production involves farming, processing, and commercialization. We are trying to mechanize agriculture, and mechanization goes along with skills. So why I'm saying this is because the resources we are pumping into the social sector, such as education, that we are paying 22% of our budget, is to build those skills that will help us to move the productive sector. And the Freetown Polytechnic is no doubt going to serve as a bridge in that transition process. So that is why the Freetown Polytechnic is very, very important. It is not only important in itself, but it is important to help the new direction government to make that transition from excessive dependence on the social sector to a productive sector that will turn around the future of this country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I also want to use the opportunity, in addition to the chairman, to draw your attention to some critical challenges that comes with transition. One is improved quality. Today, as a nation, we are struggling with examination malpractices all over the place. We want universities to become and polytechnics to become competitive. And competitivity starts at the entrance level. We want you to note that transition to polytechnic does not mean to bring 10,000 students, of which majority do not have the requisite qualification. We want you to be very strict on entrance aspect, and more so while students are here, to improve on quality. Because at the end of the day, the landmark, the reputation of the institution will be determined by the kind of product you send to the labor market. Second, competition. Today, we are in a competitive state. Freetown Polytechnic, no doubt, has to be competitive with the other educational institutions. And your competition, your competitiveness, you are better placed than any of these institutions to engage the private sector. That is why I want to encourage the Freetown Polytechnic to establish a framework wherein they will have a dialogue with the private sector, so that at the end of the day, employers will be able to tell you the kind of skills that is needed in the labor market, so that you can have what we call your labor-driven skills training. Labor-driven skills training. Professor Bimba was talking about Germany. That is how Germany was able to make a massive transformation to become a high power technology country. You have to engage the private sector. Professor Wuri just made mention that the first product of the Freetown, the Government Technical Institute, they worked in Delco. So the leadership should be able to establish framework to engage mining companies, manufacturing companies, the hospitality industry, so that at the end of the day, you'll be able to understand the labor dynamics in those very sectors that are going to feed, that are going to suck the people that are coming from here. So I want to encourage you to establish that framework that will allow you to engage in a dialogue, so that your focus will be a demand, a labor-driven skills. Finally, is innovation and technology. When you talk about polytechnics today, make no mistake, we are expecting you to be the drivers of innovation. So we want the Freetown Polytechnic to focus and put additional resources into innovation and technology. This government is one government that is pushing that. His Excellency the President in 2018 established the Directorate for Science, Technology and Innovation. Today, as a government, we have made a huge stride in innovation. The public expenditure tracking survey today is automated. Use screens, encourage them to go to the internet and look for materials. That is very important. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me categorically state here that if there is any institution that is vital to human capital development vision in terms of skills, in terms of transforming the productive sector, is the Freetown Polytechnic. Let me also categorically state here that government is committed to support the infrastructure and academic transformation to enable you cope with the growth in the education sector. That is why His Excellency in the next couple of weeks is going to publicly make an announcement for the establishment of the Education Fund, the Education Development Fund. This fund is going to support higher technical tertiary institutions to have the capacity to build infrastructure and also support the research and transformation of the skills that you need in those institutions. Because we are aware that the product of the free quality education that are going to position themselves to go into higher education and tertiary educations they are going to be in thousands and thousands and several thousands. So we need to position higher education in this country to be able to respond and rise up to that challenge. So the government is committed to support that. I want to use this opportunity to personally thank the staff, people and administrators of the Freetown Teachers College and the Government Technical Institute for giving me the opportunity to make a statement here. And I also want to thank the Minister of Higher Education, Professor Alpha Uri. Although our sister said that while time and tide waited for him, a lot of work is also waiting for him. A lot of work to position that sector so that at least our kids that are in basic education today will have a smooth entry into higher and tertiary education. It is on this note that I want to take this opportunity to officially declare Freetown Teachers College and allied institution as the Freetown Polytechnic effective 2021-2022.
Thank you so much, the Honorable Vice President. Ladies and gentlemen, please let us give the Honorable Vice President another round of applause. You see, it's all about policies and the like, but you can only digest those policies if you can read between the lines. So you can see the nexus between education and national development. It is not just about infrastructural development, even the development of the human mind, is very, very important. Because many a time our actions are determined by the decisions we make. And the decisions we make are also as a consequence of the degree to which we can think. So we